said it was nothing, just lights in the trees, a trick of the frost, a ghost on the breeze. But I saw a mirror older than me, staring through time like it wanted to speak. The forest went silent, the world held its breath. Something was watching beyond life and death. We stepped through the green, boots breaking the seal, not chasing a light, but something too real. I came back with salt on my skin, my mind split wide where the storm got in. They call it a test, but I know the deal. History blinks beneath the green veil.
And welcome everyone to another review and preview. Well, this week we're going to be reviewing Chapter 3 and previewing Chapter 4. But I got to say to you guys, first of all, good evening and actually good morning to some across the pond. We're live, so I hope you enjoy tonight's show. But guys, not for nothing, before we even start talking about it, the music associated with so far all the chapters I've seen is just outstanding. Credit goes to Keith Kerlock, Beck's Creek Sounds, and it's BCSS.rocks, and also Rose City Sound Project, which is on YouTube. But guys, I mean, the music is so well written that goes with a lot of these chapters. John, you were a part of this. You're directly involved with the process of the music that is associated. I mean, what is your take on this?
The music, the way we're doing it, music has a purpose.
Absolutely. I mean, you can hear I know Chris and I had a discussion about the music that's involved, and it's so on point with what each chapter is talking about. It's just so well done, in my opinion.
Bill, it actually tells the story, which is very unique. You know, when you hear a song, you think of it as like an opening, a closing to a story. But this is very different. The music, the lyrics, actually tells the journey of what took place at Rendlesham in a lot of ways that if you really listen to the music, you could hear the story of Rendlesham. You could hear the journey that John took and the effects of that journey.
John, you wrote this 22-chapter series. Did you have any involvement with actually writing the lyrics to this music?
Yeah, actually, the lyrics, I was the one that put them together. Keith is the one that took the lyrics and turned it into music.
It's outstanding. I have to say the production, everything that the people that are involved in this project, again, thanks to Keith Kerlock for the work that he's put into this. But let's get right to it. Chapter 3, which really gets into the details of Jack Barrett's experience post-event immediately thereafter. Chris, you've seen this, and I want to thank you for joining us this week.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always a good time to talk to John and yourself.
So when I seen it, I'm familiar with John Burroughs's experience. You know, I've spoken to him numerous times about this, but just to get into the personal details of what may have, because remember, this is science fiction, but it's also based on John's experience at Rendlesham. But just to hear about the neurological effects, the possibility that their memory, or his memory specifically, was tampered with or suppressed. And to hear this, and John has mentioned this on broadcasts prior to this, that as these memories reemerge, whether through hypnosis or just memory recall coming to him, people may say, "Oh, he's changing." No, it's not changing his story. Things are coming. It's just
recalling his story.
Exactly, and more information is coming forward. What was your take, Chris?
Well, here's my take. First of all, John, it's a great story to listen to. I recommend everybody who's interested in what really happened at Rendlesham hear every one of these chapters because they're riveting, they're amazing, and I can't say enough about it. But let's talk about the memory first. So within the chapters, we see two things happening with the memory of, and I'm going to say Jack Barrett, the character of this. Jack's memory, as he encounters what you could call maybe a portal or a plasma ball or a dimensional opening, or I mean, we really don't know, but I mean, he encounters this object, and through the object, and I said this before, it's like a Star Trek term, he mind melts with it. His consciousness blends with it in some respects. Now, hear me out on that. That may sound crazy, but we have always talked about UFO crafts having a consciousness. We've always talked about ships being able to be controlled by consciousness. And we've always said that consciousness plays a big part in this ufology field. So this really makes a lot of sense of what John is portraying here about consciousness being separated or consciousness being, I would say, enhanced through this. Now, with the memory part, he had to deal with whatever he encountered, putting false memory or repressing his memory, but also the human part to this, where doctors and stuff were also trying to repress his memory. You know, during the story, you will hear that, you know, the human part was only a temporary thing, but no one knows how the effects were with the non-human intelligence of that. Am I right on that, John?
Oh, yeah. I guess you can say that, yeah.
Let me take it.
Okay.
Chris, let me take this a little more, because I was analyzing. I would suggest that the people that are watching and listening on the radio side, you need to watch these chapters not just once, maybe twice or even 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Just to absorb all the information that's being provided here, because there's a lot of details, specifically related to technology, that you can look up and find out that a lot what is included in this series is actually factually based. I mean, we know that it's a sci-fi thing because names have been changed, but even the scientists that are depicted in chapter 3 are based on actual individuals. That's one. Then we have to think about MK Ultra. We hear the word psionics, which is kind of what you're referencing to, Chris, about the connection, the conscious connection. But
it's a signal.
And that's exactly what this is all about. And
right.
We know from chapter 2, I believe, they were trying to pull down or intercept a Soviet satellite. But I got to get some clarification from John. When this was happening and they were testing this weapons platform, whatever it was, and you know the specific details about that, was this actually something that was not planned, what occurred in Rendlesham as a side effect of them using this technology? Or was it planned that the personnel like yourself was going to experience something on the ground like a time distortion plasma bubble, as Chris referenced to? Can you give us some clarification about that?
Well, for starters, there's a guy, I'm not going to name his name. He still works in government. He's been involved with Rendlesham at one point as far as investigating. He worked in the office of net assessment. I don't know, Chris, are you aware they just disbanded that office?
I heard something, but I don't know.
They disbanded, and that office was the advanced office. It's been around for decades. It was led by a guy named Andy Marshall. His nickname was Yoda. That was all about this kind of technology, how it could be, gleaned and utilized, and what the enemy knows and what they're trying to do. And just in the last 30 days, they disbanded the office, according to the press release. So one of his things was, we discover other weapon systems when we're working on a different weapon system. So one of the things that he brought up was, you guys both know what the death ray is, right?
I do not.
The death ray is lasers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When they were working on the death ray right outside the back gate at Woodbridge, which that area was the British's Area 51, and plenty of proof You can go online if you don't believe me and research it. The BBC's even done some documentaries on that area and what they worked on. They developed radar. So that was the area where they were working on the death ray and first developed radar. Now, the death ray and the radar systems and the frequencies involved all play a part in running some incident. And the interesting thing is when you go into this and you really dive into this, let me ask you a question. Have you guys figured out where the signal is coming from?
I have a theory.
I have a theory too, but I mean, I don't want to speculate. I will.
I will too. Go ahead, Bob.
I mean, if this, sometimes it reminds me almost of the movie The Mist. And in the movie, of course, it's a fictionalized movie, sci-fi, but it's like they're trying to get access to some type of a portal, like a Stargate, opening up into another dimension. And sometimes things bleed through that dimension. They don't have control of it. They're trying to get an understanding of it. And maybe you and maybe the others were victimized by their experiment of trying to open up this time-space bubble, as I described it earlier and Chris made reference to. But I don't know yet where this is going. But Chris, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm going to take you back even farther. So while we were off air, I went to look at some stuff past called the Philadelphia experiment. Now, the Philadelphia experiment was supposed to produce invisibility, but the rumor was always that it created a portal. It created a time-lapse portal that they were able to open up, but it went haywire. They were from what I read and what I kind of get the hypothesis is that they didn't go right through. All they did were in between portals, and it disrupted everything. And so we have that first start. Now, with John's magnificent story here, that this was an accident. I mean, they wanted to pull down a thing, but there was also planned stuff that they wanted to see an encounter with. And I think the thing that they were trying to do is enhance what they started with the Philadelphia experiment to open up some kind of dimension, open up something where you can go into another dimension or another portal or through that stuff, because we've always been experimenting with that. Now, here's the key. In chapter 3, they start with that, but in chapter 4, they say the ending product.
Don't give out any spoilers.
Just a little bit. The ending product was the Tic Tac.
Yes, I was going to mention that too, but
so you have that little bit that I picked up from chapter 3 to chapter 4, and it's all the experimentation that they've done. Now, John, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like you were part of a guinea pig of this experiment that was going on. Am I correct on that?
No, not exactly. I'm going to elaborate on something that you brought up, the Philadelphia experiment.
Okay.
Are you aware of, we have technology and equipment that can create those effects? And we had it back when the Philadelphia experiment actually took place.
We were working on it. I don't know how far we went.
But you know what that piece of equipment is? It's still classified?
I'm sure it still is. I don't know what
No, I mean, the name is out there, but how it works and is utilized is classified. I'm in the middle of FOIA right now with both the MOD and Department of Energy, the Net Assessment Office, which just got disbanded, and a couple other agencies I won't name right now, because I don't want those disbanded either.
Well, we do know we have cloaking technology. Did you?
No, it's not cloaking.
No, let me explain to you that way.
Let me explain to you what.
Hold on, John, before you go into that, because he touched on the Tic Tac. I didn't really want to go there, but what if?
Oh, yes, you did.
I know, but I didn't want to do any spoilers. But if the Tic Tac obviously doesn't look really like it has solid liquid fuel, it's using another means of
propulsion.
Right. But based on what like Philadelphia experiment and other things in the past, if you're able to take an object from here and open up a dimension where it's traveling at such a speed and it appears
you're not opening up a dimension.
All right, so you're accessing that dimension.
You're creating a time dilation bubble.
Right. Okay.
We utilize the plasma effect, which can be created, we can create it with a particular piece of equipment, and or it's a natural process that they started to understand existed. And there's a good chance that because Rendlesham Forest has that effect there, they have that energy field there. But this goes all the way back to the Foo Fighters. And they first started understanding that because that's when radars first became active, and the radar signals were creating these effects. Now, the piece of equipment. Remember when they came out with the report, and they came out with the Arrow report, and the Wall Street Journal did a 2-part series. And in that 2-part series, they talked about the, not the Martlesham Heath, the Maelstrom incident.
Yeah.
And they talked about how what happened there was we were testing our vulnerabilities to this type of technology. Well, the UFO world went nuts about it, but there's 2 pieces of equipment that were there, right there on site, connected directly to the launch site, that create these effects. Do you know what those 2 systems are?
Tell us, John.
The Marks generator, which is still classified and it's evolved, and the SAGE radar system.
Were they both located at Rendlesham as well?
Yes. The generators were there. In fact, they got classified right after the event broke in News of the World. The British government actually classified that what type of, it's based off the Marks generator, and they classified that particular generator. And I'm in the middle of a FOIA right now with them, and it's all the way to the Defense Secretary's office, whether or not they're going to tell me exactly what they knew, what they were doing. And there's another name that I'm going to drop that's going to surprise you guys tonight. Guess who was the head of technology during our time frame for the MOD?
Oh.
Any idea, Chris?
No.
Nick Pope's father.
Wow.
Oh, that I didn't know.
He ran the technology division. You can find that online. He was in charge of technology that what the British were working on. He was the head of that department at that time. And guess who was close to him? Guess who the individual that was close to him?
Oh.
And they both got an award after the event. Christopher Green.
Kit Green.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was part of the weird desk for the CIA at the time. He was an analyst. And guess what else Dr. Green told both Colonel Halt and I, and I've got it in an email. Guess who controlled the memo and how it was released?
Go ahead.
Dr. Green handled the whole thing.
Yeah, Kit Green always pops up when there's something of a physical injury or physical nature.
Or put off and some of the other.
Yeah. But, John, the question I want to ask you is, when this occurred and you were exposed to all this, I mean, we've heard now that your mitochondria has changed, your DNA has changed in some respects. Do you think that was done on purpose, or is that just an after effect? Because here's where I'm going with this, is that we do know that any people that have non-human intelligence encounters sometimes have physical injuries to their brains. We know they have white spots and things of that nature. And that's done by a frequency. You know, when you have any type of transmit of, mind-to-mind type of information, talking through your mind and stuff, it has to be done by a frequency. This is what I've been told. But we do not have the DNA or the mitochondria structure within our body to be able to resist injuries from it. And I'm just wondering, and I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know, but I'm wondering if this had tried to change your mitochondria DNA so you could accept maybe messages.
Well, there's 2 parts to this, Chris. I mean, and the problem is the people that hold the key to this are a guy by the name of Dr. Gary Nolan and Christopher Green. And they've never clarified, based on the study that they allegedly did, and I say allegedly is I've never seen evidence of the other 99 people that were in the test. I was just told there were 99 other people that were studied beside myself. Now, Green did an interview for a British newspaper, and he talked about this. And he talked about the people that had interactions. Most of them are dead. So that was one of the things that came out that kind of shook people up a little bit. The majority of the people that they are aware of that had an interaction with this type of, whatever you want to call it, technology, intelligence, or whatever else, the majority of them have died. Okay? So what they haven't clarified, and never, I don't think will, because they play this little secret squirrel stuff that annoys the hell out of me, is the fact that they haven't clarified if we're already exist in that form and that's why we had the interaction, or if it accidentally interacted with us and it modified our bodies. If I had to guess, I would say it's both. But in my case, the only thing that they were talking a little bit about was they didn't think I was modified. They thought I was the real deal. And I say that from what they told me. I have no proof of whether that's true or not,
Okay,
other than
I
do have a DNA report that was done one of the top labs in Pennsylvania that supports some of what they said.
All right, John.
Wait, Chris, hold that thought.
Okay.
There is a question coming in from chat from Benno. He comments, radiation alters our DNA. Could it just be a side effect of that?
It's possible, yeah. I'm not saying it isn't, but it depends on what type of radiation you're talking about. And most people think the radiation that affected us was the standard radiation from the nuclear bomb and stuff. It wasn't.
Plasma.
It was a plasma type object, but it had terahertz radiation involved with it.
Wouldn't it have ionized radiation, John, too?
Yeah, but it was terahertz, and that came straight from Green. And what I mean by that is that he, in Above Top Secret, laid out some of the frequencies that affected us. And he also, the Condon report goes into some of these frequencies. It's in
All
the
right,
report.
so let me ask you this. Based on what you're saying, are you saying that you were born with this altered DNA and mitochondria?
That's what they were hinting at, yes.
Okay, so then...
Because it comes back to DNA and bloodlines. Yes.
Okay, so if it was altered, if it was not normal but altered, would you say that was, well, you're saying your bloodlines? I'm reaching for a word, and I'm not sure I want to throw it out there, but do you think maybe you're part of whatever else is going on? A hybrid?
Well, see, that's the word I don't like, and you brought it up, and other people bring it up. Do you know where you came from, Chris?
I have no clue. Yeah, my mom and dad. How's that?
But do you know what your bloodline, where your bloodline goes?
Yeah, a bunch of Italians, they went
No,
here
but do you
and
know
there.
where it traces back before Italy?
No,
right.
Right,
Do you
and
know
you
Bill?
don't either. I know.
Yes, I do. Actually, I
Oh,
do.
you do? Oh, good for
I
you.
have a report, and this isn't. What are the ones that they do that you do online?
Ancestry or whatever.
Yeah, no. This is a mitochondrial DNA report that came from the top mitochondrial lab in the country out of Pennsylvania. And I have a full report from them, including the fact I have an analysis from Dr. Nolan based off the actual report. And the thing that they left out that I called them on was the mutations. They tried to hide the mutations that my part of the DNA came from, because most people don't know this, which I didn't know at first. The mitochondria is from the mother; it's not from the father. Okay, so when a child is born, they have the father's DNA in it, but the main bloodline is from the mother. Okay, now according to Nolan, and I'm saying this straight up, which I've talked a little bit about before, and Green too, the analysis of our DNA was his mother's and my DNA come back to the time of Christ. That's how far back it goes. Okay? So we came back from the beginning, and according to Nolan himself, which I've got in writing. And again, I say this is what he's told me. I'm not a DNA expert, and he supposedly is. And what I mean by that, he's supposedly tops in his field out of Stanford. My son is a whole new bloodline. And there are bloodlines that are created from two different bloodlines coming together to create a whole new bloodline.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right. So your bloodline is probably one of the oldest there has to be. I mean, if you go back to the time of Christ, right?
Right.
And stuff. Can you basically, did they tell you how your mitochondria was changed or what is?
No, that's what I'm trying to say. They never said mine was changed.
Okay.
They had talked about other individuals they felt may have been altered, but they were sticking to the story based on the DNA study that mine was not, that my DNA goes back to the beginning of time.
Have they ever volunteered or asked to have it more tested or experimented more?
You know how much one of those tests cost a decade ago?
I can't even imagine.
Each test costs about $15,000. Oh, that's what they told me. I know they're very expensive. So what they did was they did this on my son, myself, and his mother. And then they also did the DNA study with the 99 other people they claimed was in the study. So, but as far as a follow-up test, no, I've not had one. And that's one of the reasons why. I'll just be straightforward. I would like to have it done again, but I'm not writing a check for $20,000.
No, I don't blame you there.
But have you been contacted by any individuals or organizations or groups that are trying to get more information about your DNA and your genetic makeup and, I mean, blood samples, etc.?
That all was done when I had my surgery. I wasn't, see, this is where it gets really fishy, okay? They came to me after we did the Bassett conference. It was the one where disclosure or whatever, and they did those hearings and stuff. So Green called my lawyer right afterwards and met with him, and then came out to Sedona, analyzed me, and then wrote a letter, which part of it became classified to the VA and the DOD on what exactly caused my injuries and what to look for and how to figure it out. And they when I did my surgery, the DOD took all those samples. And not only did they take the blood samples and analyze them, but they also analyzed the tissue.
And that you're trying to do 4 years? Have you gotten any access of the information other than that test that was done a decade ago?
No, that they're not gonna acknowledge. They're not gonna acknowledge those FOIAs. I don't even know where to go for that. I'm not really. I'd have to ask the DOD, I guess. I've never followed up, and you know who told me? Well, I kind of figured it out, but what I mean by figuring it out was this doctor was a DOD doctor that was handling my case. They brought him in. There was a different guy that did the surgery, but he was handling everything. He bagged and tagged all my stuff and did everything else. But the interesting thing was, you know who verified that that's what took place?
Cool.
John Alexander.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
When we did a Phenomenon radio show with him, beforehand, I called him because we did our interviews. I'd always call the people we're going to interview and do a short chat with him. And he comes up, he asked me on the phone, he goes, I want to talk to you about DNA for a minute. And I go, yeah. He goes, did Green and those guys ask for it? And I said, well, yeah, but I told him no. And he says, oh, well, guess what? They've got it. It's what happened when they did the surgery down in Tucson. And sure enough, it falls into exactly the way they did everything. The nurses didn't do anything with me. Everything that touched my body or was involved, he took and bagged it and tagged it. And then they drew my blood and sent it to a lab that was not a VA lab. They had my blood.
Okay.
John, go ahead, Bill.
I know, Chris, go ahead.
I want to ask you a question. I want to pivot just a little bit because I saw this in chapter 3, and I wanted to ask you. They mentioned something about when this whole thing was going down, they were testing reality, and that kind of struck because I must have missed the explanation of it. Can you tell me what they were talking about when they said we were testing reality?
Sure, that's a weapon. If you can alter what people perceive and how they perceive it, you can do all kinds of things. I mean, Alexander was working on that at Los Alamos Lab. It was called non-lethal weapons. And if you can change it, think of the countermeasures that you can do with this as far as the craft itself, whatever you're flying, how you see it, how you perceive it. If you were going into combat, if they created a reality of something totally different, they talk about holograms, but this is way past what a hologram is. This is actually altering. And I'll go back to people that say, "Oh, that's not true." All you got to do is go online and research the God's helmet. Have you heard of that, Chris?
The God's helmet?
Yeah.
I think so. I think there was an advanced helmet they were
using. It was
using.
A scientist out of Canada. It was called the God's helmet. His name was Persinger. And they did a study, and guess who was involved with him in this study? Green, Putoff, and those guys. And what they did was they created this helmet that they could put on somebody's head, and they put delivered frequencies into the mind. And 8 out of 10 people that they did it on thought they saw God.
Amazing. So they can actually produce like a hallucination, right?
No, they just, well, I guess you could call it hallucination. They're able to manipulate your mind through frequencies, just like music. Do you remember the song, "We Built This City on Rock and Roll"?
Rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah, Marconi built the Mamba, listen to the radio, don't you remember? Well, guess who Marconi is? Marconi was an Italian scientist that had the top defense contractor in the world at the time, and guess where that contract company was located? Right outside the back gate at RAF Woodbridge.
Wow!
And guess what project they were working on during our event?
Frequencies.
No, Star Wars.
Star Wars.
They were working on lasers, drones, and satellites, all having to do with frequency weapons.
All right, hold that thought, Chris. So I want to just ask you a question, John. Some of the people that are fictionalized, depicted in this series, were they there before the Rendlesham incident in some other observational role on something that they knew was going to happen? And going back, like you guys mentioned about the Philadelphia experiment and all things leading up to, were they there as observers because they did expect some kind of an adverse side effect to occur with this testing of trying to bring down a Soviet satellite? So they were on hand, and then they were there to engage with you, the personnel, afterwards.
Well, see, that's the one thing I'll just tell you straight up. I don't know if we were in the plan. That is something people have speculated on. I don't really think that, at least on night one, that they expected us out there. And in fact, the only reason we went out there is because we saw something go down in the forest, and then radar identified something going down in the forest. And normally the protocol is not for us to leave base like that. It's to contact the local authorities, and they go out and they investigate. But a decision was made by the guy in charge, and I assume that he talked to the command post, that because it was close enough to the base, and at that time we were in the middle of nowhere, so there was very few British police officers or a fire department. The closest fire department was Ipswich, I think the big one. There might have been a smaller town with the fire brigade. But so that was going to take quite a bit of time for them to get there. And not only that, but they weren't even sure where to go. So they sent the three of us out there. So on night one, I highly doubt that they planned on us coming out there and having the interaction that we did.
Oh, Chris, I just want to follow up quick. So you mentioned Star Wars. They're trying to bring down a Soviet satellite in 1980. So was this part of SDI?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Why do you think they created Space Command? Why do you think they've created what's Trump just talked about? See, this is deep. Okay. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with different Congress people talking, and even Tulsi Gabbard talking about some of this stuff. The interesting thing is Trump wants the Golden Dome operational in 3 years. Now, either that's just fiction to drive the Russians and the Chinese crazy, Or we're quite a ways. We're close to doing that, and that all ties in to all this weapon systems, the drones, the satellites, the lasers, all that. If you go back to the Iron Dome in Israel, if you watch the videos, you'll see where lasers are targeting with plasma technology that are bringing down these missiles that the Iranians were shooting at Israel. You can see it in the videos. This technology is being utilized right now as we speak.
Yeah, the new war frontier is going to be space. So I think you're spot on, John.
So this was the beginning. SDI was in the process of being developed in 1976. They started in 76, or a little even earlier than that, but it was already in 1980. This was quite a bit of ways along, but it was hidden away under defense contractors out of the States, partly because people don't remember, but MK Ultra shut down the defense industry almost. Because the CIA got busted, then they turned around and they said they destroyed the documents, and Carter became president, and he was shutting down a lot of our weapon systems. So this all got moved under a black budget over to England. Plus, they had the radar systems that we didn't have at the time.
Now,
the British were way ahead of us in radars at that point.
Oh, yeah. Now, I do know, John, that you're right when we started creating this a long time ago, because we were actually training secret astronauts to make platforms up in space, to weaponize it back in the early 70s or late 60s. They actually had the diagrams, and they actually interviewed astronauts that nobody even knew about, that they were going to have manned platforms to start their weaponization up there. So I think you were spot on as far as that goes. And God knows what they got up there now. I mean, with robotics and, artificial intelligence that's there, I'm sure they've got such sophisticated stuff that's unbelievable.
Well, not only that, but back in our time, most people aren't aware of this, but it was the state-of-the-art computing system was right outside the back gate in Martlesham Heath. The top-of-the-line computing system, the most advanced system, was located in Martlesham Heath, right outside the back gate, which is what you need to drive these systems.
John, here's an interesting question. I've always wanted to ask you this, because obviously this first came out as a non-human intelligence craft. This is a UFO and everything. When did you start getting suspicious that maybe it was our projects or the British projects or something other than NHI?
This is where it's a little strange, but in the 80s, there was some stuff that went on. I had a lot of interest from people in the defense contracting agencies that were meeting with me and were talking to me about things.
Sure.
I actually was supposed to go on the show called UFO Cover Up Live right after I got out of active duty. And the executive producer was a guy by the name of Kurt Brubaker. Now, Brubaker was involved in the Learjet with John Lear's father. He left and went to General Motors and worked there in their top secret division. Guess who worked with Brubaker in that division? Christopher Green.
His name comes up everywhere.
So he worked in that division. Brubaker left and started his own company called the Brubaker Group. Now, he brought me out there to go into the show. After he met with me, and then we went to lunch with the producer, and that was a sham. He took me back to where he lived, and he said, look, I don't want Rendlesham in this show. I want you to stay out of it. And he didn't really expand other than he said, I want you can't recall what happened to you. And I go, no, I can't recall on the first or the third night. And he says, well, would you go under hypnosis? So I thought about it, and I said, yeah, under very strict guidelines and terms, which they agreed to. And the guy that came in was actually a certified guy that worked for the LA Police Department. So this wasn't a guy that was like a woo-woo, they'll say woo-woo guy, a woman out in the middle, out there. Right. This was a certified police officer that worked on hypnotherapy or for recall for witnesses and stuff. So I went under. And a bunch of crazy stuff came out, including technology stuff, including I knew exactly to the decimal point how long it would take to get from Earth to Mars. And that was a question that was asked, and I kicked it out, just like that. And they were blown away by all this. But his company was a company that, if you researched it, was involved in technology in this area. He was interested. He brought in a guy that investigated Rendlesham for CNN by the name of Chuck DeCaro. And Chuck DeCaro had done stuff. If you go online, he did stuff on brainwaves affecting the mind and mind control and being able to communicate. So he was involved in all this stuff too. And Chuck ended up working for the Office of Net Assessment for Andy Marshall. So there's a long history of people looking at what happened to us from outside at the time that started already to realize that we were involved with some kind of technology. But I'm not saying this, and this is where people try to claim that there wasn't some other kind of intelligence involved either. It's just not the nuts and bolts alien stuff that's been fed to us as far as a craft coming from Zeta Reticuli and the biological beings that are controlling it.
I'm blown away by everything you just said, because it seems like they purposely want the alien narrative out there so people can focus on that, because really what's going on is all these aerospace companies, SAPs, are really at the heart of everything. They control like strings.
But you know why they've done that? I wrote a piece on that. I put it on my Facebook page last week. Okay, if they told you you were dealing with like a non-human intelligence that wasn't a craft or a direct weapon, okay, we couldn't get the money they're getting to work on these weapon systems.
R&D, yes.
They're driving this narrative to the public. They started with War of the Worlds, and they've moved it forward with all the books and TV shows and movies, that there is a real alien biological threat out there. And that is part of the reason why, how they're controlling all this. This has nothing to do with a civilization somewhere out in the stars that's coming on a craft that we've invented ourselves, and there are biological beings like what they presented in these movies and stuff. All you have to do is go to the movie Mirage Man in the book, and guess who dropped that bombshell?
Are we going to say the name again?
Hey, just take a guess.
Is it Green or Putoff?
Green. He said, here's exactly what he told the guy, the Pilkington. He said, they have controlled the narrative since the War of the Worlds that have everybody believing the aliens are a certain way. Said, that's not what we're dealing with.
But we're going back to Foo Fighters too, Germany,
right?
Development, because a lot of it came from there.
Yeah, but no, it didn't. It was okay, guys. I want you to think of something. The craft that you're seeing in the sky is the craft that they've designed to move forward to utilize the frequency technology that they're working on. Okay, and it's advanced to the tic-tac shape now.
Got you on that.
Okay, so the Germans were already working on this type of stuff based off of the radars and frequencies and everything they were working. Where did their scientists go? The best ones, most of the best ones came to the United States, but the ones that were into the more exotic effects, a lot of them went to Russia. And Russia started working on these programs pretty quickly. And that's what led to Stargate, because a guy by the name of Bearden, Lieutenant Colonel Bearden, started studying the advancement by the Russians and the threat that they had. And he's out there. You can just look him up online. And DeCaro ended up tying in with Bearden. And that's when he started working on the frequencies effects and everything else. And so then the American government started to try to catch up. So the Russians were ahead of us in radar frequencies and that type of technology for probably a decade before we got ahead of them. Again, we caught up and got ahead of them.
I'll let you pine it because we got like about 10 minutes left. But are we talking about getting a lot of this technology when those scientists came here from Germany? Or is there still the possibility of some kind of a crash retrieval which reversed the engineering on it? Or could it be a combination of both?
Okay, I can't say for sure there's not a craft that they have, but if you listen to Nick Pope, and he annoys the hell out of me most of the time, but he made this statement that he wrote an article, it was like 10 years ago now, and his statement was, we may not have an alien craft in the hangar, but we have our own technology being operated by alien technology, okay? And that is a pretty brash statement that's telling you that we probably don't have a craft, but we've learned what a UAP is, and we're utilizing it by building our own craft and weapons to utilize it. Now, when we went back, we'll go back to time dilation. It creates this bubble, and it's like a cloak because you disappear into, it's technically you're in a different part of the dimension. Now, the real scientific part, you'd have to look at it closely, whether or not you go into an alternate, reality, or if you just slow down or speed up. Or they may have different variants, or they've been working on this to include the March generator that's involved with this, right? And radars and everything else and frequencies. But what happens is, like that missile, what is it? It's not hypersonic, it's the next level, Chris. What's it called?
I have not heard about that.
The ones the Russians are testing, that the Ukrainians, we can't shoot it down with our systems. It's faster. It's a new weapons thing. That's utilizing that type of technology. It cuts through space and time. Okay? Wow. It creates an effect.
But right. And you're agreed, but I think we have it too, because remember, the director of science and technology for the White House come out publicly and said, we have defeated space and time.
Yeah, we can manipulate space and time.
Right.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem, guys. The computing problem. Okay, and we've got quantum now. Okay, which has changed the game. Okay, plus AI and not NHI. But AI and NHI are the same. People don't understand that. They will shortly. And that's some of what's coming up in the Green Belt. But the point being is one of the things they worked on is a tank. And it goes back to the Philadelphia experiment. The tank would start at point A and was supposed to go down the road a mile and show back up again. Well, it ended up way over here somewhere else. The problem was the computing power couldn't keep up with the time alternate bubble it was in. It's got to be able to compute where it needs to reappear again. Otherwise, it just reappears wherever the dilation bubble is, which leads to wormholes. Now, what people don't understand is if you looked at the DIRTS papers, there was papers in there with biological effects, wormholes, and that type of stuff. And one of the big papers that Puthoff wrote himself, it got introduced as evidence, and the hearing with Gresh was introduced, was space-time metrics. Okay? That paper was given as evidence to that what do they call them? Committee.
We only got like 5 minutes, but Chris, could they be so interested in you and the other 99 because of the effects? Because I don't know if there's any trials going on with this technology that you just mentioned with a tank to see the effects of having actual humans inside of it when they're doing.
Well, they can. That's probably why they're studying us. Partly.
Exactly.
But here's the kicker, right? It's going to have to be controlled by a computer. It's not. There's no way a human can control it when it's in that. It's got to be a computer, right?
Rapid.
But the problem is the computer has a mind of its own. So they're trying to figure out how, because the other part of what they were studying was the mind. They're trying to figure out how to put a consciousness into that computer to control the computer as this technology advances.
That's where your artificial intelligence comes in, John. You're right on
but
the
it's
ball.
NHI too.
Yeah.
Because artificial intelligence is not what they've said it is. It's from the future, and it's NHI intelligence. I'm telling you, you don't have to believe me. But one day, if I'm still alive, I'm going to be able to tell everybody I told you so.
And
Like Benno said in chat, quantum AI. Right? It's coming from, like you said, some kind of a dimensional.
But you also know they have quantum satellites, and they can utilize those to create wormholes.
See, the thing is, and we'll all agree on this, that the technology we see to the public is outdated compared to what they have classified.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's so far more advanced than what we have. And this is why they want to keep it in special access programs. They don't want the adversaries to know about it and stuff. But, you know, the best, the safest way, if you want to make these tanks, you know, jump through portals or anything else, you make them into like drones, you know, a remote control. You don't need humans for them.
Well, you still have to control it through the computer, and the computer's been a problem for them. They're having trouble with the drones right now because most people don't even realize this, but they admitted it in Ukraine. These drones hover on their own. They're not connected to a satellite. They're not connected to anything. They self-learn, and they go in and they hit the target. They identify a target and hit it. The problem is a human would pick the target that they want hit. The computer could pick a completely different target. And that's what they're doing with Tic Tac, because that particular system is not controlled by man. It's computer, and they were testing it on our weapon systems to see what would go on.
Right.
And I was shocked that congressman from Missouri came out and admitted that.
Burleson, I believe it was.
Yeah, Burleson did, yeah. He dropped the ball on that. So there's some stuff coming out right now that's got my attention, and I'm wondering where this is all going right now. I wonder where this is going.
If they are able to say, even comment, a congressman commenting on that, I can't even imagine, like Chris just said, what we have, and that we don't have no idea what is going on really.
Well, the majority of the people in Congress have no clue.
Exactly.
And they have no clue. And what they're doing is, I don't know how deep some of these scientists that are talking right now, how much they know. But what they're doing is they're dropping these programs, or the intent of these programs, to these Congress people, and they're getting all fired up about it because where is this coming from? Where does this money come from? We could do this, we could do that. And the ultimate thing is that this technology, is as good as it may be, is in its infancy stages still. And they haven't mass produced it yet, and they're trying to get funding for this. And they're trying to further it, okay? And that's the game that's going on. So, like, when these guys came forward and said disclosure, Mellon and those guys, there's no disclosure coming.
No,
I agree.
There's no disclosure coming. But the Green Veil is going to give you a good idea what disclosure is. And next week in episode 4, it's going to tell you where this technology is coming from. That's NHI. It's not human technology. It talks about where it came from.
Yes, a foreign source, let's just say.
Yeah.
A signal, frequency. Anyway, you folks, you're going to have to tune in next week, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, for Chapter 4, which is the Signal Splice. As John just made a reference to, you're going to see now exactly how this kind of is coming together. Because I've seen it, to prep for it. And so has Chris DePerno, who will be joining us for Chapter 4 when it airs on Thursday. But it is like, I had to watch it 2 or 3 times. I can't emphasize how this is getting more intense as the chapters go forward.
Well, just to add something to this,
whoa.
They just admitted they have the ability to do time dilation on a human. They've got it so small now it can be carried in a pack by a soldier, and it can create that effect. So there's a possibility, if a human being is going to go through that for real, that probably came from whatever happened to me.
Well, yeah, but John, somewhere there's you talk in the Green Veil about having, and we talked about this before, having memories that haven't occurred. And we discussed that you were having memories, or let me say Jack was having memories that haven't occurred yet.
Yeah, I can see the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was based because you believe that the future molded, or whatever with your consciousness.
Well, you're going to have to stay tuned on whether I went forward to the future or the future came back to me and to us.
Folks, so you got it. You got the answer from the man himself.
But there is an interaction with the future, and it very well could be myself. I could have interacted with myself from the future.
There you go.
Well, I guess we're going to have to tune in to these next, how many chapters now? 17 more to go? Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you, Bill, it's a hell of a teaser. Folks, you gotta really see this, because I saw the chapters and I'm just blown away by every chapter of this thing. Just when you think you got it pegged down, something else comes up that just blows your mind, one thing after another. And like Bill has said, you got to watch it more than once to really absorb it and really feel the whole thing, because it's an amazing story.
And down the road, there's going to be a site identified that no one, it exists, but no one realizes how much this all ties in to what's going on, period. And it's located in Pennsylvania.
More teasers. Anyway, we're going to all have to tune in. I'd like to thank everybody participating in the chat, Benno and anybody else who may be watching right now. We will be back next Saturday for another recap show, but don't forget Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Chapter 4, the Signal Splice, is going to drop. And it's just getting more intense and incredible.
And make sure if you haven't watched 1, 2, and 3, watch 1, 2, and 3 before 4, because you're going to get lost a little bit when it gets to 4. And each one, if you're not keeping up, okay. But like Chris said, you don't believe me when I'm showing, you can start following the technology trail. That's all I'm going to tell you.
And I think others may be very curious about where this is going as well, right? Maybe some people in the alphabets or those sitting in the House or the Senate pay attention to this too.
That's up to them. But if you believe, this is how I'm going to leave it, right? According to some of the top scientists in the world and some of the top people in the defense industry, I had an interaction with the UAP. And that was important enough to study me. And it relates to the future of what's going to happen to us. So if in fact that is true, because Rendlesham real and it happened, and we had an encounter with something.
Yeah, it wasn't an SAS joke on you guys.
Yeah, that's a funny one. That came out years later. But anyway, just think of it this way. Sit back and enjoy this, because this is the future you're about to experience for real. And remember the title, what's in the title of the book, it's called True Lies. And if you understand what True Lies is in Latin, you understand where I'm coming from, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah,
also,
it's an amazing story that's fictional in fiction form. But John, we all know it's your journey, and it's an incredible journey. And folks, I will just tell you, John Burroughs is a man that I really trust, and I know his integrity is impeccable. And you know, this is something that he's had you could say fantastic, you could say terrifying, there's all kinds of words to describe his journey, but really it's a very rare journey. You won't see this anyplace else. I really encourage you to stay tuned for the Green Valley, because you will get an idea of you won't get disclosure, because all of us here agreed that there's no disclosure coming, but you'll get an idea from this of what the hell is going on.
I'll add to that. All these people who write books and look at it from the outside, documentaries, TV programs, whatever it is, that's one thing. But when it's coming from the source, and the source is telling you, John Burroughs, the person that was there firsthand, is telling you what his experience was and laying out the documentation, which is coming soon in his next book, you're going to need to pay attention, because I think this is so important coming from a person that was there, not people that are speculating from in their basement writing books or whatever it is and putting their own opinions and, perspective coming from, and I'll tell you this, I ask anyone, because John is that person. He's so direct. Why don't you ask John directly? Let's bring him to a hearing, but a legitimate one with evidence to back it up. And let's put the money where the mouth is instead of just all this BS talk of lighthouses and SAS and all this nonsense. Let's get to the truth. He can provide the truth. He was there. He had that experience. And it was identified by the MOD as being a true UAP phenomenon. So let's get to the truth, folks, and keep watching The Green Veil. You still got plenty of time to watch the previous 3. 4 is airing Thursday. And that's what I'm saying. Like Ben was saying, direct source is truth, not all that other noise. That's just my opinion. So, John, you want to close it out? Any closing thoughts?
Just want to say, guys, this has been a good night. And if you think tonight was interesting, keep tuning in every week because it's just going to get better.
Yes.
Chris, you're welcome back anytime,
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure talking to you.
All right.
All right. So for everyone watching, have a great night, great morning if you're across the pond. Be well, be blessed, be safe. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you Thursday for the next chapter 4, the Signal Splice. And also, we'll see you again live next week at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And possibly Chris will be joining us once again for that. And for John Barrows, Chris DePerno, and myself, you all have a great night. Be well, and we'll see you soon. Good night.